Welcome everybody watching right now. My name is Geoffrey van IJzendoorn and I'm going to talk a little bit about the General Data Protection Regulation, as Karin already specified. As I said, my name is Geoffrey van IJzendoorn. I'm the team lead of Digital Governance Advisory at EVRY Consulting. And my digital and data governance experience started with banking and insurance regulations in Europe. And the last 1.5 years, I've been focusing on the General Data Protection Regulation. And I will talk about what we experienced in that area. And also, most importantly, why we in EVRY feel the GDPR is actually also an opportunity. First, a step back about data itself. So as you see here on this slide, on the left side, you see the cover from The Economist, which is from last year, where you see instead of the Statoil, the Shells, you see on these oil platforms, you see the Googles, the Facebooks, and the Amazons. And why is that? That is because we see more and more that data is like the new oil. It's more and more of a valuable resource. And the big tech giants, like you see them there, they're sitting on these big chunks of data. So there's quite some opportunity there. At the same time, we see, of course, the big data trends where we can also store more data. It's also becoming cheaper. While at the same time, and that's the other side to the same coin, is that it's becoming riskier to have more and more data. Think about data breaches, for example. The more data you have, the bigger the chances are that data will fall in the wrong hands. One of those risks, as you can see it, is GDPR. So it is a risk factor. And why is that? It's specifically focused on that last bullet point there. Why is there such a big focus on the GDPR? That is because non-compliance, not following the rules of the regulation, will lead to fines of up to 4% of the global turnover, or 20 million euros, whichever amount is higher. And that is why this specific regulation is so interesting right now, and why it has such a big focus. At the same time, the real purpose of the regulation is, of course, to empower citizens' rights. This to increase, as the name says, the protection of personal data of the individual, to strengthen the individual rights. So it's a little bit, if you will, about the customer focus, in this case, the citizen focus. That is the idea behind it. The GDPR, the regulation itself, is in the English version at least 88 pages. That's a lot of text to read through. Luckily, a whole bunch of people have been doing that for you before. We did that as well, and we came to 10 topics, 10 categories, if you will, that we noticed that were that you can kind of summarize it to. Starting with the purpose limitation, knowing why you have certain data, for what reasons, what legal reasons, but also knowing where you have the information stored. And if there are no legal reasons or there is no legitimate interest, then you need to obtain consent from the individual. And at the same time, you cannot just do analytics on the fly. You have to have certain reasons or consent for that. So there are some restrictions there. Top of that, to empower the citizen rights, that also means that they take ownership of their own data. So they can approach an organization and unless the law specifies otherwise, you have to actually provide that information to them, that personal information that they request, and they can ask you to have it deleted, sent to another organization. And on top of that, we also have the conventional security measures that you still need to abide to, and some newer topics, one of them privacy by design, and another one the role of the data protection officer. But why is it really an opportunity? I kind of hinted towards that already. One of them was the customer focus, the citizen journey or the customer journey. A lot of the requirements from the regulations, they indicate consent, right of access. They have to do a lot with interaction with the people. And there lies directly also the opportunity to better interact and to improve that interaction with these individuals. But that's not it. Another point I pointed out was the fines, 4% fines. There is a big accountability there, a responsibility. Who takes that accountability and responsibility? And then you have to kind of start thinking about your digital governance and data governance. So who takes responsibility for what? What we have done over the past period is helping our clients in becoming compliant by using this 5-step approach. So where we start with very basic, so starting with awareness, then an assessment with a gap analysis, doing some target setting, where you after which you actually do the real change, and then the opportunities I already talked about. And these are based off of a number of principles, which you will find throughout the regulations, but also in supervisory authority guidelines, such as guidelines from databeskyttelse, but also Working Party 29, which is a supervisory authority for all European countries involved. They talk about change management requirements, about enterprise architecture. They talk about data management and risk management principles. So we incorporated those into our approach. And as we carried out this approach over the course of the past year, we did some assessments together with a number of organizations in the Nordics that led to the following picture. So you see those 10 categories I named before, and the red is where they want to be. And the blue is where they perceived over the course of the past year, where they perceived where they are in their maturity. Of course, since then, many of these organizations have improved, and this was their own perspective on this. But this gives a picture that these organizations believed about themselves that they had a way to go. And how we help them, I'm going to show you. Starting off with the awareness phase, here I have an example of what is called nano learning. It's micro e-learning, which has a big reach to the entire organization at once. It kind of fits in the mindset that we need to see the GDPR as a movement, almost like a campaign, kind of like Yes We Can from Barack Obama. It's an entire movement. So that's not just with these nano learnings, of course, but that's also with town halls, webinars such as these, other types of presentations, informal conversations. Everybody needs to be made aware, and it has to. This awareness also needs to be there, especially in the top management side, to make this a success. I also showed you that picture with the graph. What we did, we used those principles I mentioned earlier, incorporated that into a survey mechanism that led to a maturity assessment. On top of that, other ways to deal with that are more conventional tools such as interviews or other types of gap analyses. And that, of course, leads to the gap where you need to set the target. So this is very straightforward. You incorporate that into your roadmap, but some prioritization is, of course, also very much needed. A very good approach here could be that you look at, for example, databeskyttelse and other supervisory authorities, and look at the guidelines and templates they put in place, which you can directly incorporate into your policies. For example, that would be way to prioritize, to first deal with those low-hanging fruits and then plan for the activities that require more effort. But then we get to the actual execution, so we need to make that change really happen. There are several management decisions to make there. First of all, as you see those number of topics mentioned below, there are certain concerns that we discovered, or rather challenges, to keep it positive. On the one side, there's this consent interaction. For many organizations, they struggle with how to streamline the consent management actually, and there lies, as I already mentioned, the opportunity as well, because you can leverage on this interaction. But another big concern or challenge is unstructured data and having sensitive information in unstructured data, such as in PDFs or PowerPoints, pictures, and how to get in control of that. And then also behavioral information such as cookies, which is actually also linked to another regulation that is coming up called ePrivacy, and we have compliance management. So these are concerns, and there are some tools that may support this. I have two examples. One of them in the consent interaction or customer interaction, where on the left side you see an abstract picture where a person is sitting on his or her own data and can choose to share which information with what organization or for what purpose, for what service. On the right side, you see a consent portal where people can actually use an interface to decide what information to share, but also giving them the opportunity to edit their own information, to have it deleted, and so forth. So there are tools out there to streamline this interaction. When it comes to the unstructured data, a very big concern, there are also tools out there, such as an unstructured data scanner that goes through your file sharing systems and checks your PDFs, emails, PowerPoints, but also pictures, audio files, if they have the proper tags for certain sensitive information. That is the unstructured data we are talking about, that is very difficult to get in control of. But here you see that you can actually scan this as well and try to get in control over that as well. That is on the tool side. But another management decision that needs to be made is how to make this all sustainable. So on the one side, we have the GDPR, and that has a lot of focus because of the big fine that is attached to it if you're completely non-compliant. But there are also other regulations out there, also in the past. Now, I told you that my experience is with banking and insurance before as well, and regulations there. So there are Basel and solvency regulations from the past. But currently we are also dealing in banking with a directive called PSD2. Then I already told you about the ePrivacy regulation that is also coming up. The public sector, at least in Europe, may deal with a regulation called e-government that is also currently being designed. And there will be more and more types of regulations. So rather than just focusing on getting in control of this regulation, perhaps you want to get in control over all data regulations. So that is where this is also an opportunity. So this has a lot of focus, but you can use this momentum. You have to see data as a strategic asset also. And this is the opportunity to break those old silo mindsets where system owners are in control of their own systems, of course, but hardly interact with other system owners and do not have a platform to discuss about these data regulations, in this case, personal data protection, but also other data management topics. We see more and more in organizations, as Gartner also specifies, the role of the chief data officer. So that provides a rule on the executive level where this platform is actually provided, that is giving control over this topic of data management. So as you see, there are two main areas we are talking about. One of them is the customer interaction with these specific tools. And on the other side, we have a sustainable digital and data governance, where we can make use of the GDPR to make it more sustainable for the future, also for other data regulations, but also taking into account future data trends. When there are new data trends, of course, that affects the organization as well. That also leads to new requirements within your organization. So see the GDPR as an opportunity. That is the main message. And perhaps for some of you, you will feel the same. For me personally, at least, the way I see it, the GDPR is also another opportunity. For me, it's very important to have a positive impact on society. I feel that the GDPR is actually providing that opportunity where we can combine our work also with having this positive impact on society. So for me, that is like the hidden number 3 opportunity. I hope you feel the same. And if there are any questions, then thank you very much. Also, please ask these questions. And yeah, perhaps we will speak in the future. Thank you.